Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Arnie Diaz Show. Today, a review of Roadrunner, a movie about Anthony Bourdain. Having just read Kitchen Confidential, Anthony Bourdain's memoir about his life working in the New York restaurant scene for the better part of the early 80s and 90s, I have a fresh perspective on the inner workings of how Anthony Bourdain came up in the restaurant industry. This film details more than just that. It honestly begins with his restaurant experience, but then it blossoms into a true story about his life becoming a television personality and garnering attention all the way up until the end of his life. Which, by the way, this is the suicide prevention hotline. If anyone you know or yourself is dealing with suicidal thoughts, please call this number or try to utilize the resources in your community. When I first sat down to watch this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I knew that it was going to be a film about him, and I thought it would be in a eulogy to him. But at the very end of it, I realized that this was not just a memoir about his life. This movie turned into a behind-the-scenes look into the way that he became a television personality and the way that affected his life. Using many talking head interviews with many of the people in his life, from his family and his friends, it paints a real portrait of a man. Not the glossy, pretty, honed-in version of a man, but the real nitty-gritty of who Anthony Bourdain truly was and how he interacted with the world. There are many parts of this movie that go into parts of his life that I didn't even realize that they would go into. Things that I had read about and understood to be true, but didn't realize that they would actually use these stories in this movie. It dives deep. It really does. It gives you a really, really strong perspective because it uses footage that was shot for his television shows but was not aired. So it's the in-between scenes. They really did dive deep into the archives to make this movie a narrative about him and told by him in many ways as well. It really does feel like a parts unknown, no reservations, but is rooted in more reality, and it takes its time to indulge within the psyche of Anthony Bourdain. And his voice is throughout the entire thing. From the beginning of the movie, you're introduced to his narrative, and it follows you all the way into the end. For Anthony Bourdain fans, it is a must-watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and having always enjoyed his work, was happy to see something made like this in a way to celebrate his life. Though by watching the movie, you'll understand that he wasn't exactly the most pleasant human being to be around. He was always open and honest and wanting to tell other people's stories. And those are the things that I always appreciated about him. And in this, you realize the things in his life he had to sacrifice because he wanted to tell those stories so strongly. And the powerful narrative that is compiled together from bits and pieces of footage that was shot 10, 20 years ago until now is a beautiful mosaic of what a life was behind a camera and what an amazing writer he was. Also, another aspect to him that I didn't realize that I would come to appreciate is the aspect that he is also a performer. You have to see, this mild spoilers, but at the beginning of him making a TV show, it wasn't something that he wanted to do outright, but something that kind of just fell in his lap. And as they were filming things, he kind of figured out how to do it, how to film properly, how to set things up. But then the post-production process, he was actually reading his producer's lines. You see, they would write his lines so that he would perform them, and then eventually it came to the point where he realized he needed to write his own thing, and that the show is an extension of his writing, so it needs to feel like his writing, or he would just be like any other food TV host. And you do get to see some footage of him in the booth, actually performing this oratory. And it just really opened my eyes to the fact of not just how incredible a writer he was, but what a great performer he was as well. And that just gives me another level of appreciation for the man. Roadrunner, an Anthony Bourdain film, is fantastic. Especially if you like Anthony Bourdain, but also if you like an autobiography about a man who worked very hard, got success, and was living in it. And you really get to understand the ways that he dealt with it and the way it changed his life. And in a lot of ways, you feel bad for him. But at the end of the day, you also begin to appreciate the man for who he was and who he really was to other people. Fantastic film. I give it a 5 out of 5. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I will be doing a review of the Adam Project very soon as well. Thank you very much for watching, listening. I am Arnie Diaz89 on all social media.